Some neighborhoods look so perfect that nothing bad is supposed to happen there. The lawns are trimmed, the cars are washed, the doors are painted the same safe colors. But after a while, people stop sleeping, not because of noise, but because of everything they think they see. Tonight, we open File 003, the suburb that slept with its eyes open.
They stopped closing their curtains on a Tuesday. No one talked about it, but everyone noticed. I moved to Ridgemont Acres in late September, when the leaves were just beginning to turn and the air smelled like someone else's childhood. The kind of neighborhood where every house looked like it had been copied and pasted from the same catalog. Beige siding, gray roofs, driveways wide enough to park 3 cars, but never more than 2. The lawns were so green they looked fake, and maybe they were. I never saw anyone actually mowing, just heard the sound every Saturday morning at exactly 9, like the whole street had agreed on it in a meeting I wasn't invited to. If you're enjoying this channel, leave a like and subscribe. Help this project grow. At the end, I'll reveal every file stored here. The realtor told me it was a family neighborhood. Safe, quiet, good schools, low crime, the kind of place where people knew their neighbors. She said it like it was a selling point. I didn't tell her I'd bought the house specifically because I wanted to disappear for a while. After Sarah left, after the job fell through, after everything that felt solid turned out to be held together with hope and blind optimism, I needed a place where no one knew me, where I could be nobody. Ridgemont Acres seemed perfect for that. The first week, I kept to myself. Unpacked boxes, arranged furniture. Stood in rooms and tried to figure out why they felt smaller than they had in the listing photos. The neighbors waved from their driveways, polite, distant. The kind of wave that says, "I see you, but also don't come closer." I waved back, learned their schedules without meaning to. The woman in the blue house left for work at 7:15 every morning. The man across the street washed his car every Wednesday. The couple next door argued in whispers. I could hear through the walls when the wind was right. On the 10th day, I met Richard. He knocked on my door, holding a casserole dish covered in aluminum foil. Mid-50s, receding hairline, smile that looked practiced. He wore a polo shirt tucked into khakis, even though it was a Sunday. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he said. "My wife made this tuna casserole. Hope you're not vegetarian." "I'm not, thank you." Richard Dannon lived 3 houses down. The one with the stone mailbox. I told him my name. He didn't shake my hand, just nodded like he'd filed the information away somewhere. "You settling in all right?" "Yeah, quiet here. That's what we like about it." He glanced past me, into the house, like he was checking something. "You'll get used to the rhythm. Everyone does. The rhythm, you know. The way things work. When to put out trash, which streets to park on. Little things." He smiled again. "We look out for each other here. That's important." I thanked him for the casserole. He lingered for a moment, like he wanted to say something else, then just nodded and walked back down the driveway. I watched him go. Watched him glance at the house across the street before disappearing into his own. The casserole sat on my counter for 3 days before I threw it out. I never saw his wife. The first time I noticed the lights, it was 2 weeks in. I'd gone to bed around midnight, later than usual. I was still adjusting to the sounds of the house, the way the walls settled, the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional creak of floorboards in rooms I wasn't in. Normal house sounds, the kind you stop hearing after a while. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Lay there staring at the ceiling, counting cracks in the plaster, trying not to think about Sarah's voice on the phone, telling me she didn't recognize me anymore. At some point, I got up, walked to the window, looked outside. Every house on the street had at least one light on. Not porch lights, interior lights, living rooms, kitchens, upstairs bedrooms. Some were dim, like nightlights left burning. Others were bright, flooding the windows with a yellow glow that spilled onto the lawns. I checked the time, 3:17 in the morning. I stood there for 10 minutes, maybe longer, watching, waiting for one of them to turn off. None did. I told myself it didn't mean anything. People forgot to turn off lights. People had different sleep schedules. People worked night shifts or had insomnia or just liked sleeping with the lights on. There were 100 normal explanations, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was looking at something intentional. The next morning, I walked to the corner store. Needed coffee. Needed to see other people in daylight, doing normal daylight things. The store was small, cramped, the kind of place that sold expired cereal and lottery tickets. A woman in a green jacket was buying cigarettes at the counter. She looked at me when I walked in. Not a glance, a look, like she was measuring something. I grabbed the coffee, waited behind her at the register. She paid, turned, and stopped. "You're new?" "Yeah, just moved in." "Which house?" I told her the address. She nodded slowly. "That's the Hendersons' old place. They left pretty quick." "Oh, I didn't know." "No one tells the new people." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "They never do." She left before I could ask what she meant. I paid for the coffee. The cashier, a kid who couldn't have been older than 20, didn't make eye contact. Just scanned the items, took the money, and went back to staring at his phone. On the way out, I glanced at the bulletin board by the door. Flyers for lost pets, garage sales, a community watch meeting scheduled for the following Thursday. One flyer caught my eye, handwritten, taped crookedly to the board. "Have you seen anything unusual?" Below it, in smaller letters, report suspicious activity to the Ridgemont Safety Committee. No phone number, no contact information. Just the question, hanging there like an accusation. I walked home. The sun was out. The street looked normal, and I told myself I was imagining things. But that night, I checked the windows again. Same lights, same houses. 3:41 in the morning, and the whole neighborhood was glowing. I started keeping a list. Not consciously at first, just notes on my phone. Times, houses, patterns. The blue house's living room light turned on at 3:15 every night and stayed on until dawn. The couple next door kept their kitchen light on all night, but never the upstairs. Richard's house had a light in the garage that flickered every few minutes, like someone was walking past it. The house at the end of the street, the one with the overgrown hedge, had every light on, every night. But I never saw anyone come or go. I told myself I was bored, that I was looking for patterns because I had nothing else to focus on. But the list kept growing, and the more I watched, the more I noticed other things. Cars that idled in driveways for hours without anyone getting out. Curtains that moved when I walked past, just enough to show someone was behind them. Neighbors who smiled and waved during the day but never stopped to talk. The sound of doors locking at night, one after another, like dominoes falling down the street. On a Thursday morning, I ran into Richard again. He was checking his mailbox, sifting through envelopes with the same practiced efficiency he did everything else. "Morning," he said. "Morning. How's the house treating you?" "Fine. Quiet." He nodded. "That's good. Quiet's good." He glanced at me, then back at the mail. "You've been going out at night." It wasn't a question. "Just to the store, or walking?" "I don't sleep great. Yeah, a lot of people here don't." He closed the mailbox, tucked the envelopes under his arm. "Just be careful. People notice things." "Notice what?" "When routines change," he smiled. "We're a close community. That means we pay attention." He walked back to his house. I stood there, mail in hand, trying to figure out if I'd just been warned or welcomed. The two felt uncomfortably similar. That night, I didn't turn off any lights. Left the kitchen on, the living room, even the upstairs bathroom, stood at the window and looked out at the glowing street. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was watching them. I felt like they were watching back. The community meeting was held in the elementary school gym. 20 folding chairs arranged in a half circle, a table at the front with bottled water, and a clipboard. I almost didn't go. But something about Richard's tone, the way he'd mentioned people noticing things, made me curious. Or maybe it was the paranoia finally getting loud enough to act on. 14 people showed up. I recognized a few faces from the street. The woman who left for work at 7:15. The man who washed his car on Wednesdays. Richard sat near the front, chatting quietly with someone I didn't recognize. No one sat next to me. A man in his 60s stood at the front, thin, wire-rimmed glasses. The kind of face that looked stern, even when smiling. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "I know it's a weeknight. I'll keep this brief." He introduced himself as Gordon Kleist, head of the Ridgemont Safety Committee. Said the committee had been formed 3 years ago in response to concerns about neighborhood security. Talked about property values, about keeping Ridgemont Acres the kind of place people wanted to live. Safe, predictable, controlled. "We've had some questions recently," Gordon continued, "about new residents, about routines, about what's normal and what isn't." He looked directly at me when he said it. "I want to remind everyone that safety is a collective effort. We all have a role to play. That means staying aware, reporting anything unusual, and most importantly, maintaining the standards we've all agreed to uphold." Someone raised a hand, a woman in a yellow cardigan. "What counts as unusual?" Gordon smiled. "Good question. Anything that disrupts the rhythm of the neighborhood. Strangers, loitering, doors left open, lights off when they should be on." He paused, "or on when they should be off." The room was silent. No one asked the obvious follow-up. No one challenged the logic. They just nodded, like this all made perfect sense. After the meeting, I tried to leave quickly. Richard caught me at the door. "Glad you came," he said. "It was ... informative." Gordon can be a little intense, but he means well. We all do. He lowered his voice. "It's just about being part of the community, fitting in. You understand I'm trying. Good. That's good." He patted my shoulder, a gesture that felt rehearsed. "Just remember, we're all watching out for each other here." I walked home under streetlights that buzzed too loud, past houses with lights burning in windows, heard locks clicking into place as I went by. And when I got home, I left every light on again. Not because I wanted to, because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. The notebooks started appearing in October. Small, spiral-bound, left. On doorsteps in the early morning hours when the street was still grey, and the only sound was the distant hum of the highway. Mine showed up on a Wednesday. I almost tripped over it, taking out the trash. No note, no explanation. Just a notebook with a blue cover and my address written on the first page in neat, blocky handwriting. Below the address, a single sentence. "Please record your observations." I flipped through it. Every page was blank, except for the headers: date, time, location, description, activity level, concern rating. The last page had instructions printed in the same careful handwriting. "The Ridgemont Safety Committee thanks you for your participation in maintaining neighborhood security. Please document any unusual activity and return completed notebooks to the designated collection box at the community center. Your vigilance protects us all." I stood there holding it, watching the sun come up over identical roofs. Down the street, I saw Richard bend down and pick up his own notebook. He looked at it for a moment, then glanced in my direction. Even from 50 yards away, I could feel the expectation in his gaze. I went inside and put the notebook in a drawer. 2 days later, I saw the collection box. It sat outside the community center, a small building I'd passed a dozen times without really noticing. The box was wooden, painted white, with a slot on top like a ballot box or a suggestion box at a restaurant. A sign above it read, "Community observations, submit here." I watched from across the street. A woman approached, looked around, then slipped a notebook through the slot. She walked away quickly, head down, like she'd just deposited something shameful. 20 minutes later, a man did the same, then another. Then a teenager who couldn't have been more than 16. I counted 9 people that afternoon. None of them looked at each other. None of them lingered. They just dropped their notebooks and left, and the box swallowed everything without comment. That night, I made the mistake of walking past it. Gordon Kleist was standing there, hands in his pockets, watching the box like a shepherd watching sheep. "Evening," he said. Evening, haven't seen your notebook yet. I'm still figuring out what to write. He nodded slowly. It's not complicated, just what you see. What feels wrong, what doesn't fit. He pulled out his own notebook, opened it to a random page. I caught a glimpse of neat entries, times logged down to the minute, descriptions full of words like suspicious and unusual and inconsistent with established patterns. See, he said, simple, factual, just observations. What happens to them? The notebooks, we review them. Look for patterns, cross-reference reports, make sure nothing slips through the cracks. He closed his notebook and slipped it back into his jacket. You'd be surprised how much you can learn when everyone pays attention. And if someone doesn't participate, his smile tightened. Everyone participates. That's what makes it work. I went home, left the notebook in the drawer. But I started noticing people watching me more openly now. Not hostile, just attentive. The kind of attention that makes your skin crawl, even when nothing is technically wrong. The couple next door stopped arguing in whispers. I realized I hadn't heard them in over a week. Instead, they moved through their house in perfect silence, lights burning in different rooms at precise intervals. 7 p.m., kitchen, 9 p.m., living room, 11 p.m., bedroom. Every night, exactly the same. I started documenting it anyway. Not in the notebook they'd given me, in my phone. In a note file, I password protected like it contained state secrets. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was finally seeing what had always been there. Either way, I couldn't stop. October 13th, 3:22 a.m. Blue house, 2 doors down, has living room light on. Same as every night. But tonight, someone's standing at the window. Can't tell who. Just a silhouette. Standing perfectly still. Watching the street, October 15th, 8:37 p.m. Noticed the same car driving past my house 4 times in 20 minutes. Dark sedan. Tinted windows. Drives exactly 5 miles under the speed limit. Turns at the end of the street, comes back. 4th time, it slowed down in front of my driveway. Didn't stop, just slowed. Then moved on, October 17th, 6:15 a.m. Checked the collection box on my way to the store. Gordon was there again. This time with 2 other people I didn't recognize. They were reading through the notebooks, making notes on clipboards. When they saw me watching, they stopped, smiled, waved, went back to reading the moment I turned the corner. I bought coffee, bought milk, bought bread I wouldn't eat. The cashier at the corner store watched me the whole time, not the kid from before. An older woman with grey hair and tired eyes. You still keeping the lights on? She asked. Excuse me? At night. Your lights. I noticed you started doing it. How do you know where I live? She scanned the milk without looking at it. Everyone knows where everyone lives. That's the point. The point of what? She bagged my groceries in silence. When I paid, she leaned forward slightly. They're going to ask you to turn in the notebook eventually. When they do, just do it. Write something. Anything. Doesn't matter if it's true. Just write it and turn it in. Why? Because that's how you show you're part of it. And if you're not part of it, ... double quotes, she trailed off. Just do it. I left without pressing her, but her words stayed with me, circled in my head like birds looking for a place to land. That afternoon, I decided to visit the Hendersons. The woman in the green jacket had mentioned them. The previous owners of my house, the ones who left pretty quick. I didn't know where they'd gone, but it couldn't hurt to find out. People leave paper trails. Forwarding addresses, records, the post office had nothing. The realtor wouldn't return my calls. So I did what any reasonable person spiraling into obsession would do. I started asking neighbors. Most of them claimed not to remember. Said the Hendersons had been quiet, kept to themselves, left without much fanfare. One man told me they'd moved for a job opportunity. A woman said it was family reasons. Another insisted they'd never heard the name Henderson at all, that the house had been empty for months before I bought it. The inconsistencies piled up like snow in a place that never gets cold. Finally, I found someone willing to talk. Mrs. Chent, an elderly woman who lived at the end of the street in a house with a garden that looked like it actually required effort. She invited me in, made tea I didn't want, and sat across from me with the air of someone who'd been waiting for this conversation. "You want to know about the Hendersons," she said. "If you remember them, I remember." She sipped her tea slowly. "They lived here for 2 years. Nice couple. Mid-30s, no kids. He worked in tech. She was a teacher. Normal people. Maybe too normal. What does that mean? It means they didn't fit. Not really. They tried. Went to the meetings. Smiled at the right times. But they didn't commit." She set down her cup. Margaret, the wife, she started asking questions about the notebooks, about why everyone kept their lights on, about the collection box. Gordon told her it was for safety, but she didn't buy it. What happened? They left. 3 months after they started asking questions. Packed up in the middle of the night. Didn't tell anyone. Just gone. She looked at me directly. "You're doing the same thing, aren't you? Asking questions, noticing things." I didn't answer. "Let me give you some advice," she said. "This neighborhood runs on a very specific kind of logic. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. It doesn't matter if it's fair. What matters is that everyone agrees to pretend it does. The moment you stop pretending, you become the problem. So everyone just goes along with it. Not everyone. Some people don't mind. Some people like it, even. The structure. The rules. The feeling that someone's paying attention." She paused. "And some people are too afraid to do anything else. Which one are you?" She smiled sadly. "I'm old, I'm tired, and I've learned that fighting a thing doesn't make it go away. It just makes it notice you." I left her house as the sun started to set. Walked home under a sky that looked too clean, too perfect, like it had been photoshopped into place. Lights were already coming on in windows, one by one. A chain reaction of illumination. When I got home, there was another notebook on my doorstep. This one was different, thicker. The cover was red instead of blue. My address was on the first page again, but below it was a new message. Second notice. Participation is mandatory. Failure to comply will result in a formal review. I brought it inside, stared at it on my kitchen table, thought about Margaret Henderson asking questions and disappearing in the middle of the night. Thought about Mrs. Chun's advice. Thought about the way Richard looked at me, the way Gordon stood by that collection box, the way every person on this street moved through their life like they were performing in a play they'd never auditioned for. I opened the notebook, started writing. Not what they wanted, not observations about suspicious activity or unusual behavior. Instead, I wrote what I was seeing, really seeing. October 18th. Everyone on this street is afraid. Not of crime, not of intruders. Of each other. They've built a system where paranoia is mandatory, where watching your neighbor is civic duty, where the performance of safety has replaced actual safety. No one trusts anyone, but everyone pretends to. The lights stay on because turning them off would be an admission that you're not participating, that you're not watching, that you're not afraid. I kept writing, filled page after page, documented the absurdity of it all. The collection box, the meetings. The way people spoke in code, in half sentences, in implications that carried more weight than direct statements. When I finished, I closed the notebook, and I didn't turn it in. The next morning, there was a letter taped to my door. Official letterhead, Ridgemont Safety Committee. Gordon's name printed at the bottom. Dear resident, it has come to our attention that you have not submitted your required observation notebooks. This is a violation of community standards as outlined in the Ridgemont Acres Residential Agreement. Section 7, Subsection C, Community Participation Requirements. Failure to submit completed notebooks within 72 hours will result in a formal compliance review. We trust you will address this matter promptly. Sincerely, the Ridgemont Safety Committee. I read it 3 times. Then I looked up Section 7, Subsection C, in the paperwork I'd signed when I bought the house. Buried on page 47, in 8-point font. was a clause about participating in community safety initiatives as determined by the homeowners association. I'd signed it without reading. Everyone does. That night, I walked to the community center. The collection box sat there, innocent and white in the streetlight. I stood in front of it for 5 minutes, thought about dropping the notebook in. Thought about writing something fake, something safe, something that would make this all go away. Instead, I took out my phone and took a picture of the box, documented it, time-stamped it. Then I walked home with the notebook still in my hand. When I got back, every light on my street was on, every single one. It looked like a runway, like a stage, like a prison yard during a lockdown. And in the window of the house across the street, someone was watching. I couldn't see their face. Just the outline, standing there, waiting for me to make the next move. I went inside, locked the door, left every light on. But for the first time since moving to Ridgemont Acres, I closed the curtains. The compliance review was scheduled for a Monday evening. I received the notification on Friday. Not a letter this time. Gordon himself, standing on my doorstep at 7 in the morning, clipboard in hand, smile fixed in place like it had been nailed there. Just wanted to confirm you received the notice, he said. I did. Good. Monday at 8. Community Center. Shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. He made a note on his clipboard. It's just a formality. A chance for you to explain the situation and get back on track. What if I don't come? His pen stopped moving. He looked up slowly. That would be unwise. Is it mandatory? Let's call it strongly recommended. He clicked his pen twice. Look, I understand this might feel overwhelming. You're new. You're still adjusting. But these systems exist for a reason. They keep us safe. They keep property values stable. They ensure that Ridgemont Acres remains the kind of place people want to live. By forcing everyone to spy on each other. By encouraging community awareness. His voice didn't change, didn't sharpen. If anything, it got softer. You know what happens to neighborhoods that don't pay attention? Crime goes up. Standards slip. People stop caring. Before you know it, you're living somewhere you don't recognize. He tucked the clipboard under his arm. We're trying to prevent that. I'd think you'd appreciate it. I appreciate being left alone. No one's alone here. That's the point. He started down the driveway, then stopped. Monday at 8. Don't be late. I watched him walk away. Watched him stop at 3 other houses. Have 3 other brief conversations. Make 3 other notes on his clipboard. A man conducting an orchestra where every instrument played the same note. I spent the weekend trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to leave. Pack everything, get in the car, drive until Ridgemont Acres was just a name I'd eventually forget. But another part, the part that had spent too many years being pushed around by circumstances, by Sarah's disappointment, by employers who valued compliance over competence. That part wanted to stay, wanted to push back. Wanted to see what happened when someone finally said no. On Sunday, I drove to the city, 2 hours away, far enough that no one from Ridgemont Acres would see me. I went to a library, used a public computer, and started researching. Homeowners associations, community surveillance programs, legal precedents for mandatory participation in neighborhood watch initiatives. What I found wasn't comforting. HOAs had incredible power. They could fine residents, place liens on properties, even foreclose in extreme cases. Community watch programs operated in a legal gray area, protected by vague language about public safety and collective responsibility. And everywhere I looked, I found stories like mine. People who moved into neighborhoods that seemed normal, only to discover they'd signed away more rights than they realized. But I also found something else. A news article from 6 years ago. A suburb in Pennsylvania. Similar setup. Community watch program that had spiraled into something darker. Mandatory reporting. Neighbor surveillance. People keeping detailed logs of each other's movements. It had ended when a local journalist exposed the whole system. showed how the HOA board had been using the information to pressure residents, to control who stayed and who left, to maintain a very specific demographic profile. The HOA was dissolved. 3 board members faced civil suits. The neighborhood never recovered. I printed the article, folded it carefully, and put it in my pocket. Monday came too quickly. I showed up at the community center at 7:55. The main room had been arranged like a courtroom. A long table at the front where Gordon sat with 2 other committee members I didn't recognize. Folding chairs in the audience area where a dozen residents had gathered to watch. Richard was there. The woman from the blue house, the couple next door. All of them sitting in silent attention, hands folded, faces neutral. Gordon gestured to a single chair facing the table. "Please, sit." I sat. He opened a folder, pulled out papers that I recognized as my unsigned notebooks, and spread them across the table. "We're here to discuss your lack of participation in the Ridgemont Safety Initiative. As outlined in your residential agreement, all homeowners are required to submit regular observation reports. You failed to do so despite multiple notices." He looked at me over his glasses. "Do you dispute these facts?" "No." "Can you explain why you haven't complied?" I looked at the faces in the audience, all of them watching, waiting to see if I'd fold or fight. I thought about the Hendersons, about Mrs. Chen's warning, about every time in my life I'd chosen the easy path because the alternative seemed too exhausting. "Because it's insane," I said. Someone in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Gordon's expression didn't change. "Could you elaborate? You're asking people to spy on each other, to write down every deviation from some imaginary standard of normal. You've turned a neighborhood into a surveillance state, and everyone's going along with it because they're too afraid to be the one person who says it's wrong. We're asking people to be aware, to care about their community. No, you're asking people to be paranoid. There's a difference." Gordon folded his hands. "I understand you're frustrated. Change is difficult. But these measures have made Ridgemont Acres one of the safest neighborhoods in the county. Crime is virtually non-existent. Property values have increased steadily. Residents report high satisfaction with their quality of life. Do they? Or do they just know what happens if they don't?" The room went quiet. Gordon glanced at the other committee members, some silent communication passing between them. "Mr. Carver," he said, using my last name for the first time. "I'm going to be direct with you. This community operates on trust, on mutual cooperation. When one person refuses to participate, it undermines the entire system. It makes everyone less safe. How? How does me not writing in a notebook make anyone less safe? Because it sends a message that the rules don't apply to everyone, that some people can opt out, and once that message takes hold, the whole structure collapses." He leaned forward slightly. "We've worked very hard to build something here, something good. I won't let one person destroy it. I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm trying to live my life without being watched every second." "Then you're in the wrong." "Neighborhood," the words hung in the air. "Final, absolute." Gordon gathered up the papers, put them back in the folder, and closed it with a decisive snap. "You have 2 options," he said. "Option 1, you start participating. Submit your observations, attend the meetings, follow the protocols we've established. Do that, and this matter is resolved. And option 2, we begin formal proceedings to remove you from the community. Fines, liens, legal action if necessary. It will be expensive, time-consuming, and ultimately, you will lose." He smiled that terrible smile. "But the choice is yours." I stood up. Every eye in the room tracked the movement. "I need time to think. You have until Friday. If we haven't received your first notebook by then, we proceed with option 2. I walked out. Behind me, I heard the murmur of conversation starting up, voices low and careful. I pushed through the doors into the parking lot and leaned against my car, hands shaking, heart hammering against my ribs. Richard appeared beside me. "That was stupid," he said quietly. "Probably. You can't win this. You know that, right?" "Maybe not," he sighed. looked back at the community center, then at me. Look, I don't love everything about how things work here, but it's better than the alternative. It's better than wondering if your house will get broken into, or if your car will get stolen, or if some stranger is casing the neighborhood. At least here, we know what? That we're all in it together, that someone's paying attention. He put a hand on my shoulder. The gesture felt almost genuine. Just play along. Write something in the notebook. It doesn't have to be real. Just write it and move on with your life. That's what everyone does, makes things up. I didn't say that, but the way he said it told me everything. I drove home, sat in my driveway for 20 minutes before going inside. When I finally did, I found another notebook on my doorstep. This one was black, thicker than the others. The first page had a single line. Final notice. I brought it inside. Set it on the kitchen table next to the red notebook I'd already filled out and never submitted. Stared at both of them like they were bombs waiting for me to choose which wire to cut. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Stop asking questions, for your own good. I deleted it. 5 minutes later, another one came. They're watching. They know I turned off my phone. That night, I broke my own rule. I turned off all the lights, every single one. Sat in the dark in my living room and watched the street through a gap in the curtains. The neighborhood glowed like always, perfect, pristine, terrifying in its uniformity. Around 2 a.m, I saw movement. A figure walking down the street, slow, purposeful, stopping at each house, looking at windows, making notes on something I couldn't see from this distance. When the figure reached my house, it stopped, stood there for a full minute, facing my dark windows. Then it moved on. I recognized the walk, the posture. Gordon, he was making rounds, checking who had lights on, who was complying, who was part of the system, and who was starting to drift outside it. I watched him complete the circuit of the street, watched him disappear into his own house at the end of the cul-de-sac. His lights went on immediately after. Kitchen, living room, upstairs, bedroom. One by one, like a checklist being completed. The next morning, I made a decision. I took both notebooks, the red one I'd filled out, and the black one they'd left me, and I put them in my car. Then I drove to the city, found a coffee shop with Wi-Fi, opened my laptop and started writing everything down. The meetings, the collection box, the compliance review, Gordon's midnight rounds, the texts, the threats, all of it. When I finished, I had 12 pages. I sent it to 3 places: a local newspaper, a civil rights organization that dealt with HOA abuses, and a blog that specialized in exposing suburban surveillance programs. Then I drove home. It was Tuesday afternoon when the first reporter called. Wednesday morning when the blog post went live. By Wednesday evening, the story had been picked up by 2 regional news outlets. Thursday morning, I woke up to find my front lawn covered in toilet paper. My car had been keyed. Someone had spray painted "Traitor" on my garage door in red letters, 3 feet tall. I called the police. They took a report, said they'd look into it. I could hear in the officer's voice that nothing would come of it. That afternoon, Gordon knocked on my door. He looked different, tired, older. The smile was gone. "You've made a mistake," he said. "Maybe. The reporters are calling everyone, asking questions, disrupting the entire neighborhood. Good, you've destroyed something that took years to build. People are scared. They don't know what happens next. They should have been scared of what was already happening." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You won't last here, you know that. Even if we lose, even if the committee is dissolved, you'll never be welcome. Every person on this street will remember what you did. I can live with that, can you?" He turned to leave, then stopped. The Hendersons thought the same thing. They left in the middle of the night because they couldn't take it anymore. The isolation, the hostility, being treated like an enemy by everyone around you. He looked back at me. "You've got maybe a month before you break, maybe less." He walked away. I closed the door, locked it, and for the first time since moving to Ridgemont Acres, I felt something other than fear. I felt certain. The investigation lasted 3 weeks. A county official showed up on a Tuesday morning, clipboard in hand, asking to see HOA records. Gordon refused, said it was private community business. The official came back on Wednesday with a subpoena. By Friday, boxes of documents were being loaded into a county vehicle while neighbors watched from their windows. Curtains pulled back just enough to see, but not enough to be seen. I watched too. From my vandalized driveway, standing next to the word traitor that I'd decided not to clean off, let it stay. Let everyone see what they were capable of when the performance slipped. The blog post had done exactly what I'd hoped, exposed the whole system. The mandatory notebooks, the collection box, the midnight checks, the compliance reviews that functioned like interrogations. One journalist called it suburban authoritarianism disguised as safety. Another wrote a piece titled The Neighborhood That Ate Itself. But exposure didn't feel like victory. It felt like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. The first brick came through my window on a Sunday night. I was sitting in the dark, my new habit, when I heard the glass shatter. Found a note wrapped around the brick with electrical tape, for words in block letters. You did this yourself. I called the police again, different officer this time. He walked through my house, took photos of the damage, asked if I had enemies in the neighborhood. Just everyone, I said. He didn't smile. We've had 6 reports from this street in the past week. Property damage, harassment, anonymous threats, all connected to the HOA situation. Connected how? People don't like it when you tear down their sense of security, even if that security was built on paranoia. He closed his notepad. My advice, move. Seriously, this won't get better. They want me to leave. That's the whole point. Then don't give them the satisfaction. You just told me to move. I did. But you're not going to listen. He headed for the door. Install cameras, document everything. And for God's sake, keep your doors locked. After he left, I boarded up the window with plywood I found in the garage. It took 2 hours. My hands were shaking the whole time. Not from fear, exactly. From something deeper. The realization that I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. That I was living in a place where everyone agreed I was the problem, and maybe they were right. The county investigation moved slowly. Bureaucracy at its finest. They interviewed residents, reviewed the notebooks that had been collected, examined the HOA bylaws for legal violations. A lawyer I'd never met called me to ask if I wanted to join a class action suit against the board. I said yes without thinking about it. But the legal process was abstract. Distant, what happened on the street was immediate. People stopped acknowledging me. Not actively hostile, just absent. If I walked to the mailbox, they went inside. If I drove past, they looked away. It was like I'd become invisible, except when they needed to make their disgust known. More graffiti appeared. On the sidewalk in front of my house, on my trash cans, small acts of vandalism that individually meant nothing but collectively formed a message. We don't want you here. Richard was the only one who still spoke to me. He showed up one evening while I was trying to repaint the garage door, stood there watching me work, hands in his pockets, face unreadable. Need help? He asked. I'm good. That color's not going to match. I know. He picked up a brush anyway. Started painting alongside me in silence. We worked for 20 minutes before he spoke again. You know they're planning something. I stopped painting. Planning what? I don't know exactly, but I hear them talking, at the meetings, in driveways. They're organizing. He dipped his brush, kept his eyes on the door. Gordon's lost control. The committee's falling apart. But that doesn't mean everyone's giving up. Some people, ... They need this, the structure, the rules. Without it, they don't know what they are. So what are they planning? I think they're going to try to force you out, not legally, the other way. The other way, he finally looked at me. Make it impossible to stay. Make every day so miserable that you'll leave just to make it stop. They're already doing that. This will be worse. He set down the brush. Look, you were right about a lot of things. The notebooks were insane. The surveillance was too much. But you have to understand something. People here, they liked feeling safe. Even if it was fake. Even if it was built on watching each other. It was better than feeling vulnerable. So I'm supposed to apologize for taking away their comfortable delusion. No, I'm saying you should leave before they make you regret staying. He left before I could respond. I finished painting alone. The color didn't match. The door looked exactly like what it was. Something damaged, trying to pretend it wasn't. The breaking point came on a Thursday. I woke up to find every house on the street had a sign in their yard. Same design, same message. White background, red letters. Community first. Below it, in smaller text, protecting Ridgemont values. 23 signs. Every house except mine. I stood in my driveway and counted them. Felt the weight of what they meant. This wasn't random vandalism or anonymous threats. This was coordinated, organized. A public declaration that I was outside the community, that every person on this street had chosen their side, and I wasn't on it. I took pictures, sent them to the journalist who'd written the first story. She called me an hour later. "This is escalating," she said. "I noticed. Have you thought about leaving? This kind of social pressure, it breaks people. I'm not leaving." Why? What's the point of staying somewhere you're clearly not wanted? I didn't have a good answer. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the sunk cost fallacy applied to geography. Maybe it was because leaving felt like admitting that they were right, that I was the problem, that disrupting their system justified every act of cruelty they'd committed. "I need to see how this ends," I finally said. "It ends with you, alone, in a hostile neighborhood. That's how it ends." She wasn't wrong. That night, I sat in my dark living room and opened my laptop, started reading through the comments on the blog posts, the news articles, the social media threads about Ridgemont Acres. Most people were on my side, called the HOA fascist, called Gordon a wannabe dictator, called the whole neighborhood a cautionary tale about what happens when fear replaces trust. But there were other comments too. Maybe they were onto something. My neighborhood could use more accountability. Not saying he's wrong, but he knew what he was signing up for. Sometimes community standards matter more than individual comfort. The support was nice, but the opposition was revealing. There were people everywhere who would trade freedom for the appearance of safety, who would accept surveillance if it came wrapped in the language of protection, who would punish anyone who questioned the system because questioning it meant admitting they'd been complicit. Ridgemont Acres wasn't unique. It was just honest about what it was. The county investigation concluded on a Monday in November. I got the call from the lawyer handling the class action. The HOA board had violated multiple fair housing regulations. The mandatory reporting system constituted illegal surveillance. The compliance reviews had no legal basis. The board was being dissolved, and residents who participated in harassment could face individual civil suits. "It's a complete victory," the lawyer said. "Everything you exposed was worse than we thought. So what happens now? The HOA will be restructured with new leadership and proper oversight. The old bylaws are void, and you'll likely receive compensation for damages and the people. The ones who put up the signs, who spray painted my house, who decided I was the enemy." Silence on the other end. "Then, that's not something the court can fix." I hung up, sat there for a long time. The victory felt hollow. Yes, the system was gone. Yes, Gordon and his committee had been exposed. But the fear that created the system was still there. The paranoia, the need to control, the belief that safety required constant vigilance and that anyone who disrupted that vigilance was a threat. You can dissolve a board. You can't dissolve a mindset. That evening, I walked to the community center. The collection box was still there, orphaned and purposeless. Someone had spray painted RIP on the side. I stood in front of it for a while, thinking about all the notebooks that had been fed into it, all the observations, all the fear documented in neat handwriting and submitted like offerings to an invisible god. I heard footsteps behind me, Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman from the end of the street. She looked older than I remembered. Tired. You won, she said. Did I? The system's gone. That's what you wanted. I wanted people to see what they were doing to each other. I'm not sure they do. She smiled sadly. They see, they just don't care. Or, they care, but not enough to change. There's a difference. She gestured at the collection box. This thing represented security. False security, but security nonetheless. You took it away, people don't forgive that easily. So I'm supposed to live here forever as the neighborhood pariah. No, you're supposed to leave. That's what the Hendersons did. That's what anyone with sense would do. She started walking away, then paused. But I suspect you won't. You're too stubborn. Too convinced that staying matters, doesn't it? Maybe, or maybe you're just punishing yourself for something that has nothing to do with this place. She left me standing there, alone with the box and the dark and the truth I didn't want to acknowledge. That she was right. That staying in Ridgemont Acres wasn't about principles or justice or fighting back. It was about Sarah leaving, about the job I'd lost. About every time I'd backed down, given in, chosen comfort over confrontation. This was me trying to prove I could be someone who didn't run, even if that someone was miserable. I went home. The street was quiet. Lights on in every window as always. The signs still in every yard, except mine. I walked up my driveway, past the graffiti I still hadn't fully removed, and went inside. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Is this James Carver? A woman's voice unfamiliar. Yes. My name is Margaret Henderson. I used to live in your house. I sat down. I've been trying to find you. I know. Mrs. Chen told me you were asking around. A pause. I saw the news stories about the investigation. I wanted to call and say thank you. For what? For doing what we couldn't. We left because we were scared. Scared of Gordon. Scared of the neighbors. Scared of what would happen if we kept pushing back. We told ourselves it wasn't worth it. That it was just a neighborhood. That we could find somewhere else to live. You could have, but we left something behind. Our dignity, maybe. Or our belief that speaking up matters. You didn't leave. That's worth something. It doesn't feel like it. No, I'm sure it doesn't, but trust me, leaving feels worse. Every time I drive past a neighborhood like that one, I wonder if I should have stayed, should have fought, should have been braver. Her voice cracked slightly. You were braver than we were. Don't let them make you forget that. We talked for another 10 minutes. She told me about their life now, a different state, a different community. Normal, boring, safe in a real way, not a performed way. She said they were happy. I believed her, but I also heard something underneath. Regret, the kind that doesn't fade. After we hung up, I walked through my house. Looked at the boxes I'd never fully unpacked. The furniture that didn't quite fit. The rooms that had never felt like home. I'd moved here to disappear, and instead I'd become the most visible person on the street. The villain in everyone else's story about how one bad apple ruins everything. But I wasn't leaving. Not because staying would change anything, not because I thought the neighborhood would eventually accept me, but because leaving would mean they'd won. Would mean that fear and pressure and coordinated cruelty were effective tools for enforcing conformity. And I couldn't give them that satisfaction, so I stayed. Weeks passed, then months. The community first signs came down eventually, replaced by nothing. People stopped vandalizing my property, though they never started acknowledging me. The new HOA board held meetings I didn't attend. Life in Ridgemont Acres returned to a version of normal that didn't include me. I kept the lights on at night. Not because I had to, but because it was easier than explaining why I'd stopped. Because, in a strange way, I'd become part of the performance too. Just playing a different role. The deceptor, the outcast. The one who'd torn down the curtain and shown everyone what they'd been pretending not to see. Some nights, I still stood at the window and watched the street. The houses glowing, the cars in driveways. The occasional figure walking past, hunched against the cold. And I wondered if any of them ever thought about what we'd had here. Not the surveillance, or the fear, or the mandatory notebooks, but the moment before all that, when people chose to trust a system instead of each other, when safety became more important than freedom, when watching your neighbor felt like civic duty instead of betrayal. That's the thing about suburbs like this. They don't start broken, they break slowly. One compromise at a time. One rule that makes sense until it doesn't. One notebook that seems harmless until it's weaponized. And by the time you notice what's happened, you're either too invested to leave or too scared to speak. I was neither anymore. I was just a man living in a house on a street where everyone had agreed to forget I existed. And somehow, that felt more honest than anything that had come before. The suburb that slept with its eyes open never really woke up. It just learned to keep one eye closed, to pretend it hadn't seen what it had seen, to file away the memory of what it had become and move forward with the comfortable fiction that it had always been this way. I could have left, maybe I should have, but I stayed, because someone had to remember. Someone had to be the reminder that it had happened, that good people had done bad things in the name of safety, that fear, when organized, looks a lot like order. And every morning, when I walked to my mailbox, past the houses full of people who wouldn't meet my eyes, I was that reminder. The scar on the neighborhood's perfect face, the question they couldn't answer. If the system was so good, why did exposing it feel like a crime? I still don't have an answer, but I know it's the right question, and I know I'm not leaving, not today. Maybe not ever, because this is what fighting back looks like sometimes, not winning, not changing hearts and minds. Just refusing to disappear, just staying in the place that doesn't want you, and living your life anyway. The suburb sleeps with its eyes open, and I sleep with mine closed, safe in the knowledge that I'm the nightmare they can't wake up from, and that's enough. If this story resonated with you, please support the channel by subscribing and tell me where you're watching from. Your comment helps decide which forgotten file we restore next, and believe me, the next one goes even deeper.